It's rare for a decades-long partnership to end quietly, but it's even rarer for the quiet part to last this long. More than 2 years after the split was first confirmed, Eamonn Holmes and Ruth Langsford aren't closer to closure. If anything, they're now walking straight into a courtroom that there's a specific kind of unease that settles in when you hear the phrase, hired top-tier lawyers. It signals something has shifted, that whatever soft hope remained for a quiet, amicable resolution has effectively run out. Reports suggest both sides have now brought in serious legal representation, with Ruth reportedly seeking what's being described as a financial remedy through the courts. That phrase alone tells you this isn't simply about splitting money evenly anymore. It suggests two people who no longer trust that fairness will happen on its own, and who feel the only way forward is to let a judge decide what neither of them could agree on privately, and the timeline attached to this is what makes it feel especially heavy. A pretrial review reportedly coming in the next few months, with a full trial penciled in for November. That's not a fast, contained process. That's months of ongoing tension, of lawyers exchanging documents, of two people who spent 27 years building a life together now having that life picked apart clause by clause. Reports also indicate this has already involved 2 previous hearings, one last June and another in February, which tells you this has been simmering for a lot longer than most people realized. It's hard to say for certain how draining that kind of repeated legal back and forth becomes emotionally, but it's difficult to imagine it gets easier with each appearance. What's striking is how differently each of them appears to be approaching this moment. Sources close to the situation suggest Eamonn is said to be wanting to stabilize his finances after his production company reportedly built up debts, and there are claims he's dragging his feet in the process while feeling hard done by. Meanwhile, Ruth is reportedly the one pushing to finalize things, wanting resolution rather than prolonged uncertainty, and is said to be focused on keeping their 6-bedroom family home. If these details are accurate, they paint 2 very different emotional postures. One person trying to close a chapter as cleanly as possible. Another possibly not yet ready, or perhaps not yet able, to let go of what that chapter represented financially. And then there's the home itself, which suddenly feels like far more than a real estate line item. According to reporting, the property was significantly renovated to support Eamonn's accessibility needs following his fall and subsequent surgeries. That detail changes the emotional weight of everything. This isn't just a valuable asset being fought over. It's a space that was physically reshaped around a medical crisis they went through together, back when they were still a couple navigating hardship as a team. Knowing that context, it becomes easier to understand why Ruth might feel so attached to staying there, and why letting it go, or fighting to keep it, carries meaning that has nothing to do with property value at all. Meanwhile, Eamonn's personal life has visibly moved forward. Reports link him to a new relationship with Katie Alexander, and while nothing about that connection needs to be treated as scandalous or dramatic, it does add another layer to how audiences are likely reading this story. When one person in a former partnership appears to be building something new while financial matters from the old relationship remain unresolved, it can shift public sympathy, sometimes fairly, sometimes not entirely fairly either. Viewers online have been fairly split on this point, with some feeling for Ruth's position and others cautious about assuming too much about Eamonn's side without hearing directly from him. Ruth, for her part, has continued to speak with a kind of grounded honesty that feels different from typical celebrity damage control. She's remained single since the split and has reportedly turned to therapy, which is a genuinely significant thing for anyone to share publicly, let alone someone who spent years being watched on national television. Her own words capture that resilience clearly. She describes herself as someone who has always been independent, someone learning to build her own happiness while still showing up for her son and her career. There's a quiet strength in how she frames unpredictability, describing life as something that can shift in a single moment, and choosing to see that as something she's learned to live alongside rather than fear. Taken together, this isn't just a financial dispute unfolding in the background of 2 well-known lives. It's a slow, very human unraveling of a shared identity that once felt permanent to millions of viewers. The home, the money, the timeline stretching toward a November trial, none of that is really the story. The story is two people who built an entire life together now negotiating, hearing by hearing, what's left of it is maybe the real question isn't who deserves more of that £10 million. Maybe it's simpler than that. When a partnership defined so much of your identity for nearly 3 decades, how do you ever fully separate the money from the meaning behind it? Do you find